Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are back with Cars Casually. We are wrapping up just about 2020, which has been a wonderfully interesting year for everyone. One thing we did learn about was going online with the Manila International Auto Show, and what we enjoyed most were the classic and vintage cars. So we are here to talk about that today. Today we have a special guest in, Kyle Gaite. Kyle, you may know from seeing his name plastered on Philippine race cars. He has been a race car driver from way back. I know him, so he's really way back. But he's done series all over. He's very competitive, and he's a huge tech guy. Then we have the usual suspects, which is Paulo de Borja, who asks all the questions, Francis Palyarco, who answers all the questions. Gerard will be joining us in a bit, hopefully, internet permitting. And then we've got Alvin Uy. Alvin is one of the organizers of the Manila International Auto Show. He's also a very evil human being who likes watches as well and causes me a lot of problems along those lines. So everybody, welcome to Cars Casually. Hello, guys. Hello, Kyle. Hello, Alvin. Thank you for joining us, man. Guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Manila.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Kyle is in San Francisco, right? Or where?
Yes, I'm in Southern California, Orange
in
County
Southern
to be specific. Yeah.
Okay, so it's evening for him, it's morning for us, or whatever. Well, it'll be evening by the time you guys watch this. So, okay. So we're going to talk about the Manila National Auto Show, Wired, and we're going to talk about all the classic vintage and tuner cars that caught our eye. And we are going to start with the one that won, right? And according to Alvin, who knows all this stuff, what won, okay, he knows more than me about putting these things together. So I think it's this one. There. This is the winner of the competition for the MIAS Wired, right, Alvin?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. Now, when we were talking about this, Francis launched into a discussion on it, and this was a savior car. Francis, can you tell us about this, please?
Yeah, actually, I personally know the owner of the one who built this Land Cruiser. His name is Egay Ortiz Luis, who owns Shelby Auto Restorations in Mecawayan, Bulacan. This was an older restoration of his, and the most interesting part about it was that it was discovered in a junk shop. So, meaning to say, I bet you normally get to what the condition of the car was like, or the pickup. It was supposed to be cut into pieces, and they saw the potential in it and saved it and started to build the body, the chassis, and everything, and source all the parts. So it wasn't easy, but they saw the potential in it and the rarity of the chassis, which is the Fj47 series Land Cruisers. And that's his second, I think. They built the first one before, which also won MIAS, right, Alvin?
That's right. I think they won also Best of Show a couple of years back.
Yeah, I think it was the light brown color. Same
right.
platform, same, yeah. But this is the another.
What year is this, Francis?
I think it's, I don't know, I'll visit 74. I'm not sure.
I think based on the list they gave us, it's an 84. 84. It's a 1980.
I guess that's explained the square grill, I think. The older
how many years did they, undertake the restoration for this thing?
This one, I think about a year, because the parts were hard to source. The trim parts, especially the emblems and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So if you find this thing in a junk shop, does that mean they have no idea of the value of it?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it was totally rusted out. So the value for that is just scrap metal.
Wow. So
it was probably beyond their, capability of restoring it. So who would buy one of these things? Unless matindi sakit ng ulo for this.
Yeah, but they saw the value, especially the chassis alone is valuable. I mean, you can put on a reproduction body. I mean, I know it's
a pickup truck at that, diba? I mean,
I think it's seriously cool, man.
Yeah, which makes it all the more rare.
I didn't even know there was a pickup truck for the Land Cruiser, honestly. So I was really surprised. It's pretty cool. So how many
medyo iba the demographics namin ni Carl and everybody. So I think it's beginning to show.
Just a little bit, man.
Just a little bit.
So how many years was this in the market, this pickup truck? I mean, Francis mentioned 74, but it was actually in 1980.
I think it only up to 80s, during the 80s. After that,
84, mid 80s.
Well, right now you've got like Land Cruisers of different body shapes still, right? You've got the square one that's popular in the Middle East, and then you've got the rounded one, which is more luxurious, right? And they're both parallel models, right? It's
Mhm.
wild. Do you have any
And,
pickups at Land Cruisers now? No more, none at all.
They have the square one, the square bodies one. They have
Mhm.
new
That's
ones.
still a pickup,
I
right?
think it's still in production. Yeah.
That's so wild.
Don't
I
they
think
have
it's
an
mostly
LCD
Middle East market.
now?
I think.
You were
And
saying, Kyle?
Paolo, just to let you know that the Land Cruiser, we actually made one in the Philippines back in the 70s, a mini Land Cruiser of this. Do you remember that, Carl? You remember that?
Dude, I
Francis?
used to
The
drive
Mini
one.
Cruiser.
The Mini
I would love
Cruiser.
to see
The
that.
Mini
That's one of the
Cruiser.
things I learned how to drive on. There's a Mini Cruiser.
Yeah, and I think it had a
Oh,
12R
wow.
engine. Yeah.
Yeah, it did because my Corona had the same thing before I switched it to an
I mean, that was makina ng bayan. That thing
Yeah.
powered everything. It was
It did, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. It
I
took
would
a
love
lot
to
of
see that
abuse.
one.
Yeah, those are rarity now. I mean, good. Actually, there was one on, Bring a Trailer. I'm sure you're all familiar with that site, not bad.
Mhm.
And they had one on there, and I think it was selling for $25,000 restored.
It's hilarious. All right. So anyway, we were doing this because we found all these little gems in Alvin's little show, haha, which is a big show. So let's go through this. Who's gonna tell me what they like the most? Francis, what was your pick?
My pick would have to be the Ford Escort, the Mark One, and the Outlaw Style 356 Porsche. Because
Okay.
they represent different spectrums on how to mod your car. I mean, on the other hand, we have this classic car with updated running gear. On the other hand, we have the Porsche, which is also modded, but more or less in a period correct way. So it kind of shows us the diversity of the hobby. Wherein before it was like sacrilegious. I'm sure Alvin would agree that it was considered sacrilegious before to mod a classic 256, But now it's considered parang normal.
Yeah, it's very normal now. Yeah. Most of the
Like
auto
before.
salons, yeah, they do a lot of resto mods. I think the trend started with muscle cars, and then it
That's
sort
right,
of went
yeah.
to the JDMs and then the Euros.
But I think it also has to do with the sort of artisan builders like Magnus Walker. You have the Outlaws. You have
Oh yeah,
the RWBs. They started modding these classic cars, which
that's right.
So I guess it's better because the owners get to enjoy them, unlike being
Mhm.
just kept as investment pieces. Sitting in the
you were,
garage.
you were saying about the Americans starting it. I think that's sort of justified doing that because American cars, a lot of them are junk cars. So a lot of these people, they ginanda nila, and I think it gave value and
Yes.
to these cars to be able to do it to any other car because they saw, uy, gawa tayo ng resto mod, and these cars were selling. I mean, people were buying these cars. They were selling for
Oh yeah,
200,000,
that's very true.
300,000.
Yeah.
And a lot of these cars are built at a home garage. Of course, we have a few of those, like the icons, and those are like purpose built talaga by fantastic builders. But a lot of these cars are built at the backyard of somebody's home, and that really picked up the trend and just made these cars valuable.
What year is this car? This Escort?
70,
Escort.
70, 72, mga ganun, di ba?
Okay. So this was a quite popular car back then, right? Like I would hear it a lot from like my dad and my uncles. Like I would hear the name Escort a lot.
Yeah, because it was a popular rally car back then. It won championships year
Oh,
after
yeah.
year after year, which carried over to the Mark II. Year after year, they won the rally. So it became a really popular car.
These were our high school cars. I grew up with this car in high school, and Carl can relate with me on that. So yeah, I mean, I even drew these cars on my notebook.
It's really neat.
And back in those days, Japanese cars weren't really popular. They weren't really, I mean, of course, you had the Celica, but that came in later, 75,
Yeah, it did.
76.
It did.
diba?
Yeah.
But, in the early 70s, it was, you either had an American car or a cheap European car. Japanese cars were considered, well, sorry to say, but they were like Chinese cars back in those days.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which tells you what I mean. That's what's going to happen. I mean, we had the same issue with Korean cars. We had the same, and now they're fully accepted. So we're going to have the same thing with Chinese cars.
Yeah.
So there. Interesting thing. We haven't touched on this yet, but Alvin and Kyle and I were having this long conversation with the guy who built this car. It is basically a Miata MX-5 platform. Can you call it a chassis, Kyle, or is it a platform?
I would call it underpinnings. Because these are monocoques, these Escorts.
Yeah,
they're all monocoque chassis. So you have the front cross member, you have the rear cross member, and interestingly enough, because the Miata uses a power plant frame, it's an aluminum piece that connects the front and rear cross members, and he has it on this car. I think he lengthened the car by 6 inches, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. But interestingly enough, he still uses it on this car.
So basically, this is the appropriate wheelbase measurement for an Escort of that time.
Well, it is. I mean, it's an Escort, so he didn't touch the shell. He kept the wheelbase. He fitted the Miata underpinnings to conform with the length of this car. And the Miata having that kind of subframe under it, you're able to, lengthen or shorten it as you desire, simply by extending or shortening the drive shaft. It's each component, like the cross member, is self-contained with the engine sitting on it. The rear cross member is the same thing with the independent rear suspension. So, as a matter of fact, the Miata underpinning is widely used with a lot of kit cars. If you search YouTube and you click Miata swaps, you'll get a whole bunch of hits on different cars that use the platform.
That's you were telling me that. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
and we know. I mean, we know. I mean, okay. Kyle and I are both part of one of these Miata little gangs called the Mutineers, and we both have. Yes, I don't know how many do you have. How many Miatas do you have right now, Kyle?
Well, I only have one. I mean, my addiction to that thing is one is enough money pit for me.
Okay. I have one. I have an NA. He has an NA. His is hugely modified. Mine is not all that modified, and it's so. But so we know Miatas in different forms.
Yeah.
It's up there. Okay, what's the next car? What did you say? It was a 356, right?
The Outlaw Style 356 as pattern. I guess he takes inspiration from the Outlaw Porsches in the States, built by Rod Emery, especially with that kind of look where it looks like an old race car, old factory race car, but it's so subtle. I mean, the changes are really so subtle. But to the trained eye, like for enthusiasts, that it's there's something cooking underneath there. It's like an old race car. Yeah, especially with the lowered stands, the bigger wheels, and the bonnet straps, the aluminum seats and everything, and especially the Pegasus logo, which was first seen on James Dean's 356 in 55, I think. That's why it's so associated with the 356. The Flying Pegasus logo, because of James Dean's 356 before, but this was a cabriolet.
Okay, so whereas the Escort was was fairly period specific in terms of the way he handled it,
but it had modern running gear.
Yeah, this car has wider wheels, for example, right? You're saying bigger wheels.
Yeah, but the changes are so subtle. You think it would look right at home if you put it back in the 50s. I mean, it looks so period correct, but it's been modded. But it looks so period correct that if you put this car back to the 50s, it would look right at home. Except for those wheels, though. But otherwise, it would look right at home in the 50s.
Yeah, it's interesting because the wheels change.
Yeah.
What wheels are these, friends?
I'm not sure what those are. Like stamped steel wheels.
Are they stamped steel wheels?
They look like steelies, but in bigger diameter.
But he kept it nice up because he doesn't have these skinny tires. These low profile tires. No?
But also not that wide, right?
And they're not that wide. So I mean, if you look at it, I mean, my impression when I first saw it, I thought, hey, nice restoration job. Until you look at the interior, then you really see, this guy's, it's kind of far removed, almost like you said, no, like a Singer Porsche. Well, matter of fact.
More of like the Outlaws, where it's so subtle.
Right.
don't notice the changes.
So what else is what did he? What's the engine of the car though?
I haven't seen the engine.
Alvin, do you know the engine of the? We lost Alvin again.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, sorry.
Alvin
Sorry.
just disappeared. You know, for those that don't know him, Alvin has an alter ego, and sometimes he just goes into there. Alvin, what's the engine of this 356? Do you know?
It's an original 356 engine, but I think the shroud was a bit more. They used a modified aluminum shroud of some sort that was handcrafted to fit the fans. All right. Too bad we weren't able to pop the hood. We didn't know where to pull the latch. So we when we had to shoot, we couldn't take a photo of the engine. So, but it was beautifully done.
Is this a 65, Alvin? 65, 64?
I think this one is 58.
58.
It's an A series. Yeah, A series 58.
Okay, I
Yeah,
can't
the
figure out.
interior of the thing is pretty.
Even
it's
the
really,
even the
you know,
windows, they use plexiglass and all that to complete that.
Yeah, it's got that racing window,
Yeah.
that sliding racing window.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch.
And then the
Got that leather strap
shifter is
on the hood.
yeah, and it's a short throw shifter also.
Well, so what's the story on this car? I mean, it was also was this a junk car? Did he, you know?
I think the owner bought it, and he made probably not a junkyard car, but it's most likely a
He
barn
did
find.
restoration. Yeah.
And then he did the restoration. Yeah, he wanted to buy our cousin's 356 before, but our cousin didn't want to let go. So I think that we used that black one, Carl. Remember a couple of years back?
Yes, wait. Is it the right
MIAS.
car? Is
No,
this right?
the black with the red. No, this that was a black with red interior.
No, but
the owner
this-
of this one wanted to buy that, but
Okay,
our
okay.
cousin didn't want to let go. So he got so frustrated, he ended up buying two of the 356. He has another one actually.
But this is the
So-
interior of the 356.
This is the interior of the 356.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. That's the black one we used for the Cars and Calibers exhibit, right? The first one you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah,
The black one.
yeah, that was cool because we were tucked in, Kyle. We were tucked into this little corner in the auto show, but it's the corner that if you walked by from the parking lot, it's the first car you saw, even as you exit
Yeah.
and before you enter the building. So all the car guys just looped right into that.
Oh yeah.
It was this black 930 turbo or something.
Strategic positioning.
It was actually great because all of us are like, oh,
Yeah.
You saw, I was looking at this, and I was looking at this door panel. I mean, you know, clearly you look at the car and you say, this is not a restoration. I mean, it's a resto mod. He's got these aluminum foot panels.
yeah.
That
Yes.
gear shift lever is, you know, clearly that's not an original piece.
Mhm.
I don't know about its base though. Is that an original piece or was that custom made out of it?
This one, it's bolt on, but I'm not sure if it's custom made.
But it's not an original piece of the car.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Definitely. It's an aftermarket part.
Yeah, it's an aftermarket. And then you got
No,
these
no.
like
It's an
carbon,
aftermarket part.
yeah, carbon fiber door panels.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like, no?
That's right. Yeah.
The lightweight door handles and the Motolita steering wheel.
Yeah.
We can't have that.
Carl
without
likes his Motolita steering.
I love my Motolita.
Yeah.
Motolita steering.
I love my Motolita, and I forgot that it doesn't hold the same knob. Kyle, remember? I bought this wonderful. We did a group buy of rev limiter
Custom-made horn buttons. Yeah.
custom made horn buttons, and I completely forgot that my steering wheel can't fit it. So what the heck? I have to buy another steering wheel. Which means I have to buy another Miata, right? No, okay. So yeah, right. Okay,
Well, now-
Paolo, what was your choice?
Oh, mine was, I'm a bit more basic on my next one.
Mm-hmm.
I had the 1983 Mercedes-Benz 240D, the 123.
Can you share that
It's a
photo?
bit more.
You know
Yeah,
which one it
I'll
is?
share that photo for you. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it's a bit
Is
more
this an
conservative
E-Class?
than our last picks. E-Class, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Paolo's a Mercedes fanboy.
Yeah. Because I grew up with Mercedes-Benzes, and this was actually the first one I reached as a kid. So this one's the 240D. This Benz was considered by many as the epitome of Mercedes-Benz cars. it was very versatile, and it was considered over-engineered for its time. Until now, we see a lot of them still in use all over the world as taxi cabs. We see them on Third Road, and I would see a nice one in Carl's Village actually. Yeah. So there was a total of like 2,600,000 sold of these cars during its run from 1976 to 86. It had an array of body types. It had a convertible, a coupe, a limousine, a wagon. So it's really, like a growing classic.
And these things were built like tanks.
Yes, they were.
We
like,
had one. We had a 280D.
Okay, wow.
280D or
Like it's like
300D?
yeah, I like this one because it has the hubcaps on. Like, because the ones I would see nowadays don't usually have the hubcaps anymore. So this is a nice touch. I'll share a rear photo.
Alvin, how did you find all these cars?
Well, for the classic ones, we have a few groups that we normally tap each year, and they usually prepare for the show.
Yeah.
So it's quite they've gotten used to being invited all the time, so they kind of have something prepped up, whether we ask them or not in advance.
Okay.
So, and most of them know each other actually. So.
And how is it nowadays, Alvin? I mean, back in the day when I was still living in Manila, we had the trans show. We had a few cars, but I understand now. I think that it's just so much bigger now. No, these people restoring, building these cars. It has grown, no?
Mm-hmm. It has grown substantially, and if you look at, like, say, Paolo's choice, the car is probably older than him. You have a lot of 20-somethings, 30-somethings who are into getting cars that are as old as them.
Yeah.
And we try to be active also in these communities. They sometimes group together by brand, by category, by genre. So we try to keep active and keep an eye out. Whoever posts a nice photo of a car on social media, we take note of it, and then with a mind of thinking of inviting them in the future in future shows.
Yeah,
I guess that's how organizers do it. Sophie probably does it that way too.
Well,
Yeah,
Paolo,
I-
is that a thing, Paolo? Is that a thing that you want a car from your birth year? Is that a real thing?
Yeah. My car throughout high school, college, and after college was a 1989 124. So this was pretty close to my heart because it was as a 20-year-old car back then. It had a lot of problems, and I learned a lot of basics because of it. And yeah, with what Alvin said, a lot of people from like my generation actually are into these kinds of cars, the 123 specifically, and the 124. So we understand that it's a bit more of a gas guzzler compared to like a typical car that we'd buy, but like there's really something to it that's really endearing. Like some of them like putting a lot of us actually like keeping it stock, like this one, which is quite nice to see. So it's mostly the 124s and the 123s.
And I think that transcends all generations. No, I mean, like now, Carl, Alvin, Francis, we're all in that generation now where the cars we used to love in college, we look for those cars now, cars that were built in the 80s, the 70s. I constantly scour Craigslist for an 82 Corolla because that was my college car, the 82 Corolla DX. And keep looking at one. And probably for Paolo, down the road, 10, 15 years down the road, he's probably going to own one of these things because it was the car that he grew up with,
Right.
And it's going to be all original because back in those days, we modified the hell out of these cars. But now when you look at something in an original condition, that's what really appeals to us. It's only original ones. And that really brings the memories back of when we were a lot younger.
Indeed. And you know what's good about these cars? Like, even if they're like 30-plus-year-old cars, there is still a lot of parts for it, especially for this one. So that's what's interesting about it.
But that kind of goes, like everyone says that nowadays, you young kids don't want to drive, and all that. And yet you've got this, and they're specifically looking for older cars. So that's actually very cool. I mean, Alvin and I are in the whole watch scene thing, and it's not unusual for people to find not only their own birth year watch, but their own. It's called a BIMBY, BMBY, birth month, birth year, which tends to be a Seiko because they have the best recording of when it was actually produced by month, right? So I find it surprising that that's a trend. I didn't. Well, Paulo, you're also the one who brought the whole word Tito Car into the conversation. So I guess
With your help.
That's a millennial acronym for us.
Oh no. But here's the thing. Paulo says he is not a millennial. He is not defined it, right? Paulo, you're not, right?
I think I'm still part of that group. I'm still part of that group.
But he identifies as what did you say? You said because you had a violent reaction when we called you a millennial.
Yeah, I don't identify with any.
Okay. He's just a car guy. He's not a watch guy.
Yeah.
Kyle, what were your other car picks in this little crew?
Well, I saw the box. That was a box type Lancer there. I mean, that was a car.
Oh yeah, the red one.
The red one.
Yeah.
The Mercedes two-door SL. Was it an SL? Was that an SL 450? What else were the other cars there? And of course, the Ford Escort. No? I mean,
I think the SL was a last of the line 560. It was a US version, last of the line. Yeah, it was an 89. They made those cars for 18 years. So
yes, that's
and
right.
I think for me that was the best of the bunch.
I think so too. I mean, that was a beautiful car, and when the 450 came out in the US, I mean, that thing sold like hotcakes.
Oh yeah.
So, and I remember back. Mm-hmm.
Paul, have you got those photos? I can't find them.
Yep. I'm getting it for you.
Thanks. I can't see. The positive thing is he's way better than I am. So
yeah. Although I find the V8s a bit front heavy, so the straight sixes would be best if you want a more sportier feel. Yeah, that's the one. This one it's owned by I think the president of the Old Schooler Club. His name is Manny. He's also my go-to guy for classic JDMs. This one still has a nice interior.
It's amazing that some of these cars survive. As you know, the 80s was a terrible time for the Japanese. These cars rusted.
Yeah.
Most of these cars rusted to death.
That's true.
Diba? I mean, straight off the boat, kalawang ng problema ng mga
That's right.
The DXs, the Lancers,
Yeah.
the liftbacks, Nissan, the liftbacks. I mean, because we owned all these cars, and it was a constant exercise in patience to have these cars, painted over and over again. Kasi kinakalawang.
That's right.
Eh.
Yeah. I heard there's an urban legend that the local car maker skipped a process on galvanizing the steelwork, so that ended up, making these cars as rust buckets.
Yeah, I think
It was the old Delta group, I think.
Francis,
might know.
you're nodding your head. What do you know that we don't know?
No, because especially the lift backs of the lower quarters, they're really prone to rust. The DX, the lift backs.
Yeah.
Even the Coronas, they extend way back to Coronas.
For
They're really known for
Is it true? Is it true that they skipped the process? Just to save
I'm not sure, but I've heard of that urban legend.
Parang ganun, no? But
Yes.
very hard to verify.
Yeah,
But
because
it's the end result.
Yeah, because even Toyota had this like dipping process.
That's right.
Remember the ads? They still rusted.
Yeah.
So it's probably something to do with the metal.
It was a metal supplier that didn't, like you said, use a process in ensuring that the metal wouldn't rust. So I don't know if they were scrimping on it, or I don't know what the deal was, but that metal went to the manufacturers, and when they were stamping it, and no matter what priming you did or anything, the car's just rusted.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Every
was that-
2-3 years, you'll get a bubble. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then-
Because I
you have
remember my
to-
brother's lift back every 2 years. Hilamos.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It gets worse if you don't treat it.
Yeah.
Well, we all had the Tough Coat Dynol or Z-Bar our cars then, right? So
Oh God, wasn't that a thing back in the day? Rust
it
proofing. I
was.
couldn't
Oh
stand that
yeah.
stuff. I had mine removed all the time. I mean, but they sold it like it was like this is gonna save your car and you gotta
Yeah.
have this. And boy, a lot of
Yep.
people bought into that.
Yep.
They're marketing it as if it's a rust vaccine of some sort. Yeah.
Right. So
What are
this
the
is a
other?
nice example. I mean, look at this. This is clean interior. You can see
Yeah.
that the dash is not sagging. Buo pa siya.
Yeah. That's what gets me. When I try and look at like old cars, what gets me is that's what I can't solve. I can't solve the interior. Let's say of a nice dash, right? If it starts sagging, if it starts getting stuff in it, I can't. One of the problems we have in the Miata groups is that all of the sides of our seats wear out, and we can't. I mean, this is now a 20-plus-year-old
30,
car. We can't. Yeah, we can't even get this stuff. I have the same problem with my Galant GTI. And then this is typical, right? My driver's side seat is worn, but everything else in the car is pristine, right? So I don't want to change everything, but I can't use that seat that way anymore. So you end up having to decide: are you going to go full leather? Or are you going to do period correct recaros? Don't know.
But Mazda offers the restoration parts nowadays. I mean, brand
Yeah.
new parts for these cars.
Yeah,
Probably an arm and a leg, but it's available.
yeah, and that's
Is that program available here, Carl?
so
Yes,
you can order.
you can order
Okay.
parts. You can.
Yes.
I mean, Japan now produces the parts again. So
Yeah.
through Mazda Philippines, you can start ordering, panels
Oh, wow.
here,
Okay.
little pieces here, clips there. So they are available now.
That's also the difference between American cars and Japanese cars. Unlike before, the aftermarket parts for muscle cars was already there. You can order carpets, whatever color you like, body
That's true.
panels, floor
That's
pans,
true.
everything. So a lot of these muscle cars were saved from being, crushed. Unlike Japanese cars, they don't have a support system. Like, for example, I have an old Sprinter or Corolla. I need a fender for that. So I end up taking up another fender for another car. So that means another Corolla gets lost, right? So it's only, I guess, up just now or recently that the Japanese automakers have realized this or something.
It's parang throwaway car, no?
Yeah, that's why
Diba?
the Corolla coupes here, especially here, the Corolla coupes, I think you can count in your fingers the only remaining original ones, because a lot of them are used as parts cars. So they end up, getting more and more rare because they end up used as parts cars. Unlike muscle cars, so they have, unlike muscle cars, even the 50s cars, the Tri-5s, the 55, you can order the whole steel bodies of these cars. And
Yeah,
put on
yeah.
the chassis.
Absolutely.
Like the Escorts
like-
and even Escorts in the UK, you can order whole steel bodies of Mark 1
yeah, you can
Escorts.
actually buy
Yeah.
a brand new Escort.
Yeah, whole shell,
Completely.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Brand
So
new.
nothing gets destroyed.
But you're
Unlike
not
Japanese.
ordering. You can't buy these from the original manufacturers.
No, they're out from aftermarket.
They're all aftermarket, so it's all
Yeah.
the support system that's built
Even
in.
the US is all aftermarket. You can build a brand new Chevy 67 Chevy Camaro, 69 Chevy Camaro,
Yeah.
brand new.
All new,
You know.
all new.
The parts are made in Taiwan or China, but I mean they're available.
That's what's lacking in the Japanese car scene, the restorations. I think there are only a few who make their production parts for like a tail light or a specific quarter panel. It's hard to find.
Like for example, the
Amer-
240Z, no? You
Yeah.
couldn't. Nobody makes it. You'd have to source a junk one, maybe cut a panel
think-
here or there.
I think in the US, I tried to restore one before. In the US, there's this company called Black Dragon. You can order from them reproduction parts
For the 240.
and for 240.
Wow.
and they're getting
not
pretty expensive.
100%. Oh yeah. I think
Yeah,
they
they
last
shot up
year
in price.
they broke a record.
Yeah, right, last year,
an
no?
auction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How much was it,
local
Alvin?
prices are-
I don't remember how much
I
was
can't
it.
remember the price though. Yeah, was it Sotheby's or Maycoms or something?
Yeah.
But it was a very. I think a few hundred
Did, did, it,
thousand
did, oh,
dollars.
did it break the million mark like the 2000 GT?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I
I
don't
guess
think
in the
so.
future it will. In the future it
It
will.
probably will. Yeah.
It's just a
Well, they
matter
were
of
saying
time,
we were talking to people who do the restorations for these before, the ones that were in Clark, right? And the if you look at the way these cars moved in terms of the market, it was the American cars which suddenly skyrocketed, and then it was the British cars, and then it was the Porsches, and those have all gone up and gone down. Arguably not the Porsches yet, but the next wave should be the Japanese cars, and we're already seeing it. I mean, just in terms of if you look at the corollary, secondary, or third level industries that pop up to support these cars, they're already there. If Mazda commits to the NA, but I mean, even without that, the reason I picked up an NA in the 90s, in the 2000s, sorry, was because Mazda locally did not support the car in any way at all. They were terrible at it. But the support system for enthusiasts was all there. It was the Miata Club. So I knew whatever problems I had, I could source all the parts I needed. And that was in 2000. Imagine now you've got, you can get answers, you can get parts from all around the world for these cars. So, yeah,
I was talking to a friend of mine who is part of the Nostalgic Car Group. And he was saying that, like you said, no, the American cars, their prices went up, followed by Europeans, and the Japanese hit this a few years ago. I think now it's steadied out. It's not going up like it used to. Maybe 3-4 years ago, a Celica would command a huge price, and that's why the Toyota 2000 GT, that $1 million for that car. This is what, 2 years ago. So I think it's sort of peaked now, no? And it's now stabilizing. I don't think it's going up anymore. But
do you think it's
the demand
dropped?
is great for you. Yeah, I don't think it's dropped, but it's select now. It's not like people were clamoring for these cars. They would any car that they Celica, because they knew that the demand was high. People did that, whatever condition it was. Now, not so much anymore. I think it's stabilized now.
Okay. Well, okay. If you talk to younger people, and the way we felt about things like Corollas, or the way people like Francis and even me felt about Honda Civics and so on, the cars that they, at least in the Philippine market, they're modifying Hyundais. They're modifying Kias. That's kind of the cool car to have. Tell me if I'm wrong, anybody. But do you see this happening to those cars as well? I mean, if it's a natural progression, then people should be looking longingly at their Hyundai or their Kia.
The problem for those cars is that the aftermarket support.
Yeah, that's true.
You can only get so much suspension, wheels, and tires.
Yeah.
That's it.
In the US, there is a following for the Hyundai, especially for the what's the
Genesis?
The Genesis two-door. There is a as a matter of fact, really close to my house, there's a big tuning firm for the Genesis. The 2 liters and the, I think, V6.
V6.
So there is, not massive. Recently I was searching on YouTube because I was curious, who modifies Hyundais? Do Koreans modify the Hyundais? They probably do, And I was surprised that they do. I mean, there is a big active racing. Korea has a racetrack, so they are actively, But has it hit worldwide? I don't know. I mean, to think that Hyundai has a WRC and they're into, racing heavily, I don't see that it's hit like the JDM cars. Maybe down the road it probably will, no? But I don't see it like the way it did with Japanese cars. But for sure, later on, it probably will.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're also, the cars that come out of Korea are, it's just not a bad thing, but they're built, they're now built by different suppliers, and they get different, it's not like before. So I don't know if we'll be able to source parts for these cars, because it's not, these are all built by companies that have different,
And Carl, I think also, cars that come out of the factory now, they're just so good. They're powerful. They're fast. Not like before. You'd have to modify a car to the Japanese cars, you have all these old cars that are now desirable now. Korean cars, the Korean market is relatively new. I mean, so they don't really have any classic cars yet. So
That's true.
Diba?
Yeah. And also, the one thing I remember looking at the way the Korean cars were coming into the market. And if you had the American cars, it had to kind of build to their marketing, and the Europeans kind of the same. They had to be very specific. The Japanese were kind of getting there. The Koreans just, they're like, no, we're just going to build a really good car, period. And so they came out with things like my favorite example is the Hyundai Santa Fe. And it was just a better car. They weren't saying it was more sporty or more adventurous. It was just a great car. We're seeing that with China cars now. They're just building pretty good cars, man. That's what they're focusing on. They're not focusing on marketing that we're dynamic or we have a heritage. They're just making good cars.
And they were smart, these manufacturers, because they would hire these designers who they would get it onto the floor. I mean, they get it onto production quickly.
Yeah.
They'd hire ex-Japanese, like the Hyundai when they first started. They were they're Mitsubishi cars basically, rebadged, re-engined, and they look different. But they hired a lot of the retired Japanese people on production lines to manage their lines. So they got they hit the ground running and got these cars into production quickly.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when I was a kid, I was in Korea, and they had the Pony, and it was basically just, I the way I look at it is like they spent the first X number of years just learning how to build cars. Period. Then they spent the next learning about engines, and then the next learning about design, and then all of a sudden it's all coming in now. And then we were talking about design with Paul. We were talking about design with Kia. Who was a designer? Former Audi guy. Yeah. So and then now you've got this with China, right? And we Alvin. We went to the Hong Kong Watches and Wonders, the watch show, and we visited a lot of designers in the China and Hong Kong industry, and a lot of designers would rather be in Asia now than in Europe. And they would say, in Europe, we're part of 100 guys and we're all doing the same thing. If I'm in China, I'm the guy. I'm the guy for this company. If I want a prototype, I'll walk across the street and get a prototype. I can see something built so quickly and come to market so quickly. I can make changes so quickly that they're happier there. They get more fulfillment there, because if you're in Europe doing this, you're answering to a board that answers to another board. A
lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah. So I'll bet right now if we wanted something, we could get. Look at the answers during this pandemic, right? We got so many products came out of China so quickly, right? Southeast Asia and Asia in general is just much more quick to respond than a lot of parts of the world. Even the Ford guy, right? When they brought in the territory, which is the Ford we like, haha. Okay, I'm not going to say that, but it said no. There are far more advantages coming out of this car coming out of China than one coming out of the U.S. or coming out of somewhere else. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing. It's sad, that here in the U.S., China cars, they're given a bad rap, basically.
Oh yeah.
China cars are crap, But you look at what they're coming out with, what they're producing, especially the electric cars. They're the largest single market in the world. Electric cars are just, they've left everybody behind with electric cars.
Yeah. Well, one thing we've noticed is that every China car we test, the systems are so much better. Let's say the audio, the Apple CarPlay, as an example. The Apple CarPlay and Android Auto of the China cars will be so much better than the European cars or even the Japanese cars, because they're so quick to take it up. They get the latest thing.
You mean the interface is really smooth.
I asked Paulo. He's the one who kind of sucked me into this whole Apple CarPlay thing. But no, and after he told me that, I'm like, you're right, because we're testing whether it's a BMW and Audi. Well, the Audi 8 is a bit different. That one's really good. But when we compare it to any of the other European cars, they're kind of behind in terms of like the quality of the screen, the interface, the level at which Apple CarPlay operates. It's just wild. Anyway, getting back to old cars rather than new cars. What was our other choice? We completely forgot about this. What was our other choice for the MIAS cars? What did we like? I like
Jared had a few.
Yeah. He liked the Safari, right?
Yeah.
Let's share that.
That's a really cool car.
Yeah, let me try and share that.
You got a picture of that one?
Yeah. He liked basically it's a 911 Safari up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, right. The rally car, sort of.
Yeah.
Actually, even the suspension, it uses, I think, Elephant. They use the Elephant suspension. It's probably an aftermarket brand. I'm not familiar with it. But it's even from ground up, it was really made to be a Safari spec car. It's
So this is
an
sort of like a
old
period correct? It's a period correct sort of modification?
It probably is. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure though.
But I mean, that's we were talking about what's period correct and so on. How do we even,
Yeah, this is somebody's interpretation of that. This was their dream. No? Yeah, this is what was in his head. And I mean, building it like that is incredible. It's a feat in itself.
Yeah,
It was
I remember.
more of like, what would it take if I took a 911 and took it to the Safari? What are the equipment or the sort of specs that I would put? More type of build rather than if is it correct or not.
Yeah.
It's more like equipping the car to a certain rally or something expedition.
Right.
And we were talking like okay, I spent a fair amount of time with like the Porsche engineers, right? And they have this group. They have their group or their own little clubs inside Porsche, and they're actually very selective. And you can't, like the old air-cooled guys there or whatever, and you can't just join them. And these guys are actually mined for ideas. So sometimes Porsche lets them build something like one of the special run cup cars or something, and they let their passion run with those cars, and they do a small run that people don't see. So they really do they do mine their enthusiast. If you're ever inside the Porsche factory and you see the list of cars that they sell internally, it's insanely cool. It's just so you're like, can I please buy those cars? Can I just join you for a day and buy those cars? But no, they're great. And Kyle, we were having this technical discussion on you were pushing the engineering side of Porsche, and one of our friends was pushing the engineering side of a backyard shop.
Yeah,
right. Which I have nothing against, except we got to remember. Porsche is the biggest race car manufacturer in the world. They make more race cars than anybody else does. They really do. At least as of a few years ago.
It was something about the safety cage.
Right.
And it just struck me like, well, how can you belittle a company like Porsche who's been building? Well, it wasn't belittling it, but. Just to me, it came across na parang, come on, this is Porsche. Even if they didn't put that piece on it, these guys know what they're doing.
Okay, Porsche is a very different company from others, but they have a level of passion that is just insane. And they really let them run. They let their engineers run with their ideas. And sometimes these ideas that make no sense to the numbers counters get kind of outvoted by the guys, and they're willing to let them try, and they come out really well. I mean, we've been into their. I did this one time. We went what they call the secret garage, which was so secret that the bus driver got lost, and there's no names on it, right? But we go inside and we see these one-off cars that they just built for testing, and they're just amazing stuff. And a lot of them are just cars that the engineers said, we want to try this. We want to try this configuration. We want to try this setup. So all these things, like a car like this, they were like, who in his right mind would run a 911 on a raid, right, through the desert? But hell, yeah, they do. So there. This is one of my picks, by the way.
The 959 wasn't the 959. Wasn't that the raid car?
It was. But it was. But even without that, people were running 911s. And even older cars, even the old Porsches, were run in rallies that we don't even remember anymore. Yeah. They're great. We don't make our cars, but they're great. So, all right. Any other fun cars that we want to discuss before we wrap up and start talking about all the other modifications
Well, I
in the
think
next
there was a
episode?
wasn't there a Land Rover that you had that?
Yeah, there was. Where is that?
Oh yeah, that was a Series 3, the baby blue one.
Yes, that one.
Paula, can you find it? Oh, okay. No,
It's
that's not
it's
it.
under the same owner as the 123 Mercedes.
You know, I appreciate old vehicles and the value that it's brought on, but you know, I remember I remember back in '76, I went to Leyte on a hunting trip, and we rode a Land Cruiser FJ for 6 hours on back roads. It was the most horrible experience ever, ever about it. I mean, and now these vehicles are worth $30,000, $40,000, you know, and I'm like, my God. Yeah, that one. Ang ganda, you know. Ang ganda nito. It looks all
Oh,
original. Yeah.
So
No, I remember
With the
talking with.
special
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Horrible riding vehicles. I mean, but hey, you know, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. No, I remember, and I remember I was talking with because I have this thing about wagons, right? And I have this thing about 123 Mercedes wagons. And a friend of mine is Rene Nunez, and he was saying like, I love your car. I love your car. I say, Carl, before you buy one, take mine for a few days and see how you'll live with it. And he was like, okay, never mind. You know, that's why I get my fix in Subaru wagons.
Yeah.
But
like a
I love them.
trophy.
I love them 123. I love them as wagon.
Carl loves his
Wagons.
wagon.
Well, hey, Paolo loves his wagon too. You know, he loves wagons.
Yeah.
We've converted
Yeah.
him.
Now this must be a first gen early model, no?
I don't know, Alvin.
Well, no, the headlights are on the fender, so this is probably a lot later model.
Yeah, it's a Series 3 already. Let me see the year.
Who was I discussing this with about that about the fact that it's got a second roof over it? Was that you, Paolo?
We were, sir.
Yeah. And people don't realize what that's for. It was just basically heat. It was heat dissipation. You could get air running through that second lifted roof.
Oh, is that what that slot are? Those slots are in the front. They was lifted like that, so air would come in.
Well, basically, it's so that the sun doesn't beat down on the roof itself.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it was that.
Is that a metal roof?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And the sides were flat so that I don't know if anyone knows about. Okay, the SAS had a whole run of these things built, and they were called Pink Panthers. Pink to blend in with the sun in the Sahara or whatever. But the things were all flat, so they could lay out their maps. And someone said, "Yeah, well, they still used maps." Haha. Okay, but no. So it was very, very utilitarian. And here's a cool thing: if you look at these cars, some of them, and you look inside at like the door hinges, they're like beautifully structural pieces. You know, they're not like modern cars. We opened up a Tesla, and if you look into a Tesla door hinge, it looks like a cabinet hinge. But if you open up something out of one of these cars or something out of a Lexus, there's like this beautifully sculpted metal piece, man, and they're just so nice to look at, man.
You know, matter of fact, manufacturers now take a lot of time, effort, and money to get that tactile feel of that solid door handle. You know, because they've lost that. You know, a lot of these cars have lost that feel
completely. Yeah,
like a Mercedes. The way you pull a door handle of a Mercedes, you close that thing. It's like a bank vault. You know, modern cars, they've lost that sort of, you know, that tactile feel.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we were just driving something. What were we driving? The Jimny, right? We were driving the Suzuki Jimny, and I was surprised at how solid the thing actually closed. And that's an inexpensive car. So maybe it falls to these small makers to keep this level of like, okay, Mazda's not a huge maker, right? Okay, but they've taken a position where they're gonna find that passion. Suzuki, you know, arguably similar. So I don't know. Anyway, so we're hitting up we're hitting an hour and we're supposed to stop. So we have gone through. It's Paul's job to remind me that we're over talking again. So basically, we have gone through. You know, we had all these cars lined up, but we only hit like 5, right? And we've hit so many that we want to go back and talk about again. But okay, so we've basically had a discussion with 2 new guests that we have never had, which were Alvin Uy, who is one of the organizers of the Manila International Auto Show. And this year it was wired and it was online. And we have had with us Kyle Gaita, the race car driver and all around good-looking Southern California guy. And we've been talking about the cars that we love and why we like them. And even Paolo, our youngest member, has brought in his love of old Mercedes-Benzes and so on. I mean, I'm a fan of just about anybody that loves their car, so that's cool. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will be extending this into discussions on, for example, how to take an MX-5 and turn it into the Escort we saw, because it's hugely interesting in terms of the whole technical thing. We like the fact that you can source these parts. We're going to have discussions on these cars later on. But for the moment, thank you very, very much for joining us. This has been Paulo. This has been Kael. This has been Alvin. This has been Francis. Gerard was in and out. I am Carl. Thank you very, very much for joining us. This has been older cars that we've been talking about, and we like them a lot. Thank you very, very much for joining us, everyone. Join us again next time. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, everyone.